Good evening. Buenas tardes. We are here to discuss our recent win with Leandro. Thank you so much for everyone who's joining. I'm going to go ahead and let folks in. Just one sec. That would help if I let people in. A ver. Good evening. Thank you for joining us. We're going to get started in just a moment.
Hello, everyone. Hola a todos. Before we get started, I want to introduce real quick our interpreters who are here with us tonight, and they will give us instructions for those of you that need to listen in, how you can join that function. Hola a todos. Les estoy presentando a los interpretadores que van a apoyarnos esta noche. Ellos ahorita van a decirles cómo entrar a ese canal. And I am Crystal Salazar, the coalition coordinator here at Reach Out and See. And I'm really happy for you guys to be here. Hola a todos, Cristo Salazar, y solo les dejo saber que soy el coordinador de la coalición y te lo paso a ti, Fátima.
Gracias. Buenas noches a todos. Los organizadores de este evento tienen la forma determinación de facilitar la comunicación bilingüe durante la reunión de hoy. Mi nombre es Fátima y hoy tendremos interpretación del inglés al español y del español al inglés. Good evening, everybody. The organizers of this event are firmly committed to facilitating bilingual communication in today's meeting. My name is Fatima. I'll be your interpreter for today, and we'll be providing English to Spanish and Spanish to English simultaneous interpretation. Para conectarse, le pedimos a todos los que no sean bilingües que vayan al globito que está en la parte abajo de su pantalla y seleccionen su idioma de preferencia. Y también pedimos a todos los participantes que hablen un poquito más lento para permitir el tiempo de la interpretación. We invite anybody who is not bilingual to select their language of preference by going to the small globe icon at the bottom of the screen, and then you can select the language you'd like to listen to. And we also ask all participants to speak a little bit more slowly so we have time to interpret to everybody else. Thank you. Muchas gracias.
Okay, and we just opened up the language channel. I hope everybody can access that. Fatima, I think we are good to kick things off. So good evening, buenas tardes. My name is Sarah, and I'm a public education advocate at the North Carolina Justice Center, and I'm also the co-chair of the Every Child NC Coalition, and we are working together to lead the fight for equitable school funding. And we use the Leandro case as a way to organize and build power in our community. And we just had a really big win. So that is what we are here to discuss tonight. We've got incredible advocates joining us who have been relentless, tirelessly, fearlessly leading this fight for decades, for a long time. And we are so thankful for these leaders that are joining this conversation tonight for helping us deliver this monumental win. So just to kind of position this conversation tonight, I'm going to invite my colleague, Matthew Ellenwood. He's the director of the Justice Center, just to kind of position the ruling and what it signifies. But before we do that, I'm just going to invite all of our panelists just to go ahead and introduce yourself. Let us know who you are, where you're coming from, and then we're going to get started in the conversation. So I'm going to go ahead and start with you, Susan.
Hello, I am Susan Book. I am coming to you from Wake County. I am a parent advocate here. I am one of the admins of Save Our Schools North Carolina, a proud partner in Every Child NC, as well as a co-host of Advocacy Bites, a podcast where we talk about being an everyday advocate.
Beautiful. Thank you, Susan. Miss Jackie.
Good evening, everyone. I am Jackie McLean. I come to you from Hope County, the birthplace of Leandro. I am currently a dropout prevention specialist for Hope County Schools, as well as the current president of the Hope County local branch of the NAACP. And advocacy is synonymous to my name, and that is why I am here tonight.
Yes, it is. Thank you, Jackie. Dr. Nash, welcome.
Thank you. I am Willette Nash. I come from Winston-Salem, Forsyth County. I'm a former educator, elementary and college professor, curriculum administrator, but I am now a member of Action for It.
Thank you. Good to have you. Maria, welcome.
Gracias. I'm going to go ahead and do mine in Spanish. Voy a hacer la mía en español,
Sí,
porque sé que tenemos padres hispanohablantes. Buenas noches, María Mayorga. Yo estoy en el condado de Guilford, en Greensbury High Point. Soy mamá acá en el condado, así que la educación es algo que me impacta directamente con mis hijos. Y vengo corriendo de una reunión de jóvenes, ¿verdad? Que estamos lanzando un grupo de jóvenes latinos acá en High Point. Entonces, hablando de las cosas que afectan a nuestros jóvenes y la importancia de entender el proceso legislativo, de la importancia de Leandro y saber cómo podemos nuestros jóvenes y nuestros padres involucrarse para que la reunión que tuvimos hoy con los jóvenes pueda crecer en otros condados y que nuestros jóvenes reciban lo que necesitan. Gracias.
Muchísimas gracias. Tamika, how are we doing?
Hello and good evening. I am Tamika Walker Kelly. I'm an elementary music teacher by passion and trade from Cumberland County, but I'm currently serving as president of the North Carolina Association of Educators based in Raleigh, but our statewide organization for public school workers. And so glad to be here with you all this evening.
Beautiful. Thank you, Tamika. Mr. Sutherland.
I'm Harry Sutherland. I'm bringing you greetings from one of the greatest counties in North Carolina, Hope County. I'm also a county commissioner, going into my third term there, and I'm a former Board of Education member as well. Just want to say welcome, and we're glad to be a part of the process.
Thank you. Marcus.
Thank you, Sarah, and good evening, everybody. My name is Marcus Bass. I serve as the Deputy Director for the North Carolina Black Alliance and Executive Director for Advanced Carolina, former educator and proud member of Every Child NC.
Beautiful. Thank you. Matt, how about you? And then we can have you just go ahead and transition into setting the tone for tonight. How does that sound?
Sounds great. Thanks, Sarah. I'm Matt Ellenwood. I'm the Director of the Education and Law Project at the North Carolina Justice Center, and been doing this for about 13 years, working in education policy in North Carolina. I've had to do a lot of different updates, and usually I'm the bearer of bad news. So it's wonderful to be here talking about this with you all tonight, and I really appreciate everyone taking the time to spend it with us on this evening. But I think there's a bunch of Leandro experts on this, but what we're talking about really are children's rights. We're talking about what do our constitutional provisions mean? There's a very special place in the North Carolina Constitution for public education, goes back a long ways. It's one of the strongest provisions in the entire country. It lives within our Bill of Rights, so it's got that level of being that type of right. And for too long, it hasn't been clear, what are we actually entitled to? Is it just, can you go to a school, or do you have to go to a school that provides you with some level of education that actually gives you opportunities to participate meaningfully in society, go on to higher education, gainful employment, all those sorts of good things. So this is a case that involves the interpretation of that provision that's been going on since it was first filed in 1994. And as our wonderful panelists have said, it was brought by folks in from Hope County, Halifax, Cumberland, Robeson, and Nash counties. These were, districts that had a lower tax base that were having difficulties generating enough funding to support their education system. And because the state constitution says that we have this right to a sound basic education, the responsibility is ultimately on the state to support districts if they are having that type of difficulty. Of course, there are all kinds of districts across the state that look just like those 5 that I mentioned. And certainly there are students in every district who aren't getting the opportunity to receive a sound basic education. And that could be in the most affluent district. There's different at-risk groups that have been identified over time in the case, in addition to students who are from working class families living in poverty, multilingual learners, students with disabilities as well, student groups that have persistently faced opportunity gaps. Have always had a special place, as has early childhood, because that's one of the only remedies that's really been developed over the years in the case. So in 1997 and in 2004, the Supreme Court found that the state was violating these constitutional provisions, and but they ordered the state to come up with some sort of remedial plan to fix that. But here we are in 2022, and that has never happened. No plan was ever developed. No plan was ever implemented to actually uphold students' rights. So in recent years, the court said, well, I guess we're going to have to develop the plan. And they worked with some of the biggest experts in the country and in the state as well. And when interviewed educators, parents, business leaders, people, community leaders across the state, try to figure out what's missing in your schools. What are the resources you need to actually meet the standards that have been set forth in the state constitution? And the result of that was something we've called the West Ed Plan. That was who developed it, but then we really call that the Leandro Plan. It's the comprehensive remedial plan in the case. And it really is a comprehensive plan, one of the best that's ever been involved and created in the country. And it recommends increasing investments in education by $5 billion phased in over 8 years. It really does involve a comprehensive plan from early childhood all the way on up into the transitions into college and career. It deals with staffing, teachers, counselors, therapists, nurses, all of the shortages that we're seeing. It's a path forward on dealing with all of those vacancies. So this plan was eventually entered in a court order, and that's what this most recent case was about. Can the court enforce this plan, and including in that directing that the funding be released without the state legislature putting it in their budget is essentially the question. So what we're really dealing with here are years 2 and 3 of an 8-year plan. And what we're celebrating is that the Supreme Court said a time can eventually come where we've given enough deference, we've waited long enough for the legislature and the state to come up with a plan. We need to do something. So they ordered that the funding be released for years 2 and 3 of the plan. Obviously, we still have the remaining years to look at going forward. And so we'll have to continue to fight for that, no doubt. But this is a huge victory. And I can always tell when I'm getting text messages from people in my family or people who I went to school with years ago saying that this is just amazing. This has national implications for other states that have similar problems to us, that a court has stepped forward and done this. And just to talk about this group's involvement, which has been so amazing. I've been so blessed to get to be involved with this group that I always thought one reason why this has dragged on for so long is that no one's ever bothered to check in with folks from the actual most adversely impacted communities. The original places that brought this suit, the people who work most closely are family members of our multilingual learners, our children with disabilities, our students who are living in poverty, dealing with opportunity gap problems or lack of opportunity. That's really what the Every Child NC Coalition brought to this case that I think was very important. And there's a reason why we're getting this ruling now after that involvement, because you need to ensure that the people who understand these problems best are involved in both coming up with the plan and overseeing the plan to make sure that it's implemented. So we did a lot of work to make sure that the plan was representative of those needs and responsive to them. And it's just been, again, really heartening to do that. We did an amicus brief in the case with over 140 organizations that signed on. There's a lot of people who want this. And there's a lot of people who don't want this too. And so there is going to be a long fight, as always, when you're dealing with something so transformational involving civil rights, something that is really going to change the nature of our society and who gets opportunity in it. And there will always be efforts to undo these types of things, but this is such a landmark moment in our state's history. And again, it's a nationally important case that is really, I think, the result of tons of people working on this, but the fact that so many people from communities who had other things to do that were busy doing the work in our schools took time to be part of this effort and show how important it was really incredibly influential in this process. And I'm just really thankful for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. That was a really beautiful summary, and it really helps to kind of position us with this conversation. A reminder to all of our panelists to please speak slowly for our friend Fatima, who is doing her best to interpret. And if folks who are listening in to the Spanish interpretation missed some parts of that or have follow-up questions about the legal situation, we will be offering a workshop later on for our Spanish-speaking advocates. Tendremos un taller, una charla particular sobre el caso y más sobre la situación legal más tarde. Entonces, siguen en contacto con Cristo, que tendremos esa programada ya pronto. Okay, I also wanted to bring in our friend Henrietta to the conversation, and we're going to start where it all the magic starts, right? In early childhood education. Henrietta is our dear friend and a longtime champion of Leandro, coming in from Rocky Mount. So Henrietta, if you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself, and what does this mean? What does this ruling mean to you as a leader in this space, and to all the families and the children that you work with? And you're on mute. There you are.
There you go. Well, thank you. I'm glad to be here tonight. It's been a long fight for everybody. And I'm Henrietta Zalkind. I'm the executive director of the Down East Partnership for Children. But my background is as a legal service lawyer and specializing in education. So I've spent my whole career fighting for equal access to high quality education for all children. And I moved to North Carolina in 1991. And Leandro was just being talked about then, and the case got brought in 94. And just about then I moved from legal services to lead the Down East Partnership for Children that focuses on launching every child as a healthy lifelong learner by the end of the 3rd grade. And so it's also been my honor not only to lead the Partnership for Children, the Smart Start Partnership, the contract administrator for NC Pre-K, but I've also been a member of the Leandro Commission that worked with West Ed to develop the comprehensive remedial plan. And it's a series of investments in equity. And so to fight really for this whole time to not only develop the remedy for denying all children a sound basic education, but to see that implemented now, especially in these years that we are still in the pandemic and watching so many families with young children struggle to get them off to a high quality start so that they begin school ready, that they're healthy, ready to learn, and they go to schools that are ready for them. It's really, it's just unbelievable to get to this point. But I think Matt is right. We are going to have to fight for it and vigorously defend this opportunity, not even opportunity, this right that has been established by the highest court in North Carolina. And so many people want it, and now is such a time where a lot of people are losing hope. We don't have teachers at, in early childhood or in the K-12 system. We don't have enough teachers. We don't have enough money. So we really locally and statewide have to work on rebuilding the workforce, rebuilding people's hope, that teachers really can get kids ready for school, and parents can be part of that process, and then that they can be successful once they get there. But that's going to take investments in the workforce, investments in early intervention, investments in wraparound whole child services, so that kids who go into the K-12 system go to schools that are ready for them with enough teachers, enough nurses, enough bus drivers,
Right.
to really get off to a good start and be reading by the end of the third grade so that they can read to learn and be a successful part of, our economy and have successful lives. And so
Right.
this is groundbreaking.
Absolutely, Henrietta. Thank you so much. Now I'd like to invite Hope County into this space. Mr. Sutherland or Miss Jackie, I don't know who wants to kick things off, but we're real eager to hear what this ruling means to your community.
Well, okay, I will. I'm super excited. I am so excited about this ruling. I went on the school board back in 2000, and that's about 3 years after the first Supreme Court ruling about the children deserving a sound basic education. Historically, all the wealthy counties like Mecklenburg and Wake and Gifford during that particular time, they received more than, we're gonna say, their fair share of adequate resources and qualified teachers because they had the resources. So Hope County, Cumberland County, other counties, we were coming in last place, so to speak. This right here levels the playing field. The playing field is levered, and I'm so excited because our kids deserve this. There's no fault of their own, no fault of their parents, economic background, educational background, what have you, but we deserve this. And I'm so happy that everybody came together throughout North Carolina, throughout the nation to say, look, this is important. So this ruling means so much, not only to Hope County, but to North Carolina, to say that all our children, we're gonna recognize the kids that are in poverty in Mecklenburg County. Even though Mecklenburg might be a wealthy county, you still got some poverty in your county. We're gonna recognize all of our wonderful children. They deserve a sound basic education. And lastly, I tell everybody, as a kid growing up in a poor county, I grew up in Hope County. Education was my passport. It was my passport to a future. I went on from high school with the NC State, then I went on to North Carolina Central Law School. That gave me an opportunity to have a bright future. And I think for 28 years or so, we have been denying this passport of a basic sound education to our children. And I'm excited when this ruling came out in the first part of November. Whatever I need to do, we standing up for them, the county commissioners, the Board of Education, whatever we need to do to move this forward so that they won't try to delay us again. We want to be a part of the process. But
That's
again,
right.
we're just happy.
That's right. Thank you. How about you, Jackie? How you feeling?
I am equally ecstatic. I truly can say that when I received a call from you, I was actually in conference, I was training some students, but I had to take a moment and I literally cried because I was overwhelmed, overjoyed that it happened. And I'm just grateful for what the future looks like for our kids. And as Harry said, not just Hope County, but all of our kids, because truly every kid whose lives we make better because of Leandro, that is a multitude of success. That is a wealth of a healthy community. And so for me, this just simply means strengthening our community by strengthening our children. And in strengthening our children, we give them the resources that they're so deserving. And no one should really have to beg and plead for a sound basic education at this time and age. We have children who have been marginalized for so long. And it is time for us to change the narrative. And through this funding, I believe that we can do that. And just to wrap it up, when the young lady came on just now and she introduced herself in Spanish, for me, I felt like what it possibly could feel like for some of these kids. She was speaking a language I didn't understand. I couldn't follow her. I didn't know where she was going. It left me lost. It left me baffled. And if I had to come back and repeat what she said, I'd be lost. And having someone to interpret. So we have bilingual children in our school system now. This funding will create an opportunity to bring in the the bilingual people who can speak the language and who can teach the language, and where we all can understand the language, because we do live in a community now where we have diverse people of color, diverse language dialects, and it's important. So I'm ecstatic, I'm excited that this money, it will come, that it will do some tremendous things for our students and our teachers especially. And again, building our communities and strengthening our community through education, through some of this money that Leandro is going to present to us.
That's right. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Jackie. I'm going to invite Maria now to, on that note, and for folks who need English interpretation, again, you can just go ahead and select that globe icon on the bottom of your screen. Maria, what does this mean to your community?
Quiero comenzar hablando un poquito, dando un pequeño resumen de lo que es Leandro, poniéndolo en palabras a veces simples que nuestra comunidad necesita, ¿verdad? Porque a mí me gusta, pero el plan Leandro que comenzó desde 1994, ¿verdad? Como dijeron hace rato, tal vez muchos dirán, oh, esto tiene años, no tiene nada que ver con mi comunidad, yo ni estaba aquí, pero solo quiero resaltar que el tiempo que lleva es la lucha que ha existido en este país, especialmente en Carolina del Norte, desde hace más de 20 años, ¿verdad? Así que muchas de las injusticias que vemos hoy en día no comenzaron ayer, comenzaron hace más de 30 años. Y hubo un grupo de personas de estos condados rurales donde hoy en día hay una larga concentración o amplia concentración de comunidades latinas, Latinx, en Carolina del Norte. Así que para nosotros esta ganancia significa de que nuestras familias que a veces piensan, oh, como yo acabo de llegar, como yo no sé cómo apoyar a mis hijos, yo no sé qué hacer aquí y allá, esta ganancia, ¿verdad? El seguir peleando, luchando por los derechos para que los fondos lleguen a nuestras comunidades, en las escuelas rurales, en las escuelas donde la mayoría de estudiantes son de color, con la comunidad negra, la comunidad latinx, la comunidad asiática. Esto va a ayudar a que nuestros estudiantes, cuando las mamás tengan que llamar a pedir un intérprete, no tengan que ocupar a la misma señora que tiene que revisar o estar en 5 otras escuelas, ¿verdad? Cuando pidamos a una trabajadora social, a una psicóloga, no tendamos que esperar 2 a 3 semanas para que vengan y nos ayuden con nuestros hijos. Entonces, solo quiero recalcar que la lucha viene desde hace años. Y sí, hay personas que han tenido la paciencia, que han seguido luchando, nosotros también podemos. Y que esta lucha no solo es de las comunidades rurales y no solo es de la gente que lo empezó. Como alguien dijo hace rato, ¿verdad? Esto ayuda bastante porque ahora vemos que comenzamos a ir a las comunidades directamente impactadas y así es que se está logrando el cambio, así es que se están logrando las victorias. Entonces lo mismo quiero recalcar con la comunidad que tenemos hijos en las escuelas, como en la escuela que acabo de venir con jóvenes, ¿no? De que los jóvenes quieren quieren tener recursos, quieren ser parte de un sistema que los acoja, que los haga sentir parte de la comunidad y eso comienza con nosotros. Comienza con nosotros como comunidad, como padres, abogando, informándonos, ¿verdad? Que el plan Leandro, ¿verdad? Va a apoyar a estos 5 condados, pero en general es una ganancia de que si ganamos aquí, podemos ganar mucho más, ¿verdad? Informar esto a la comunidad también nos ayuda. Algo que yo estoy haciendo en estos días es hacer presencia en las juntas del sistema escolar, ¿verdad? Aquí nosotros en Guilford County acabamos de cambiar de superintendente. Están haciendo reuniones para que ella escuche de la comunidad. Entonces, nosotros esta semana texteamos a varias familias para que fueran. Lo mismo con esto, ¿verdad? Entonces, ¿cómo se puede involucrar la comunidad desde el nivel local y que estamos viendo ahora los frutos a nivel estatal? Eso es lo que esto significa. Y pues daba los ejemplos de las intérpretes, los psicólogos, las trabajadoras sociales, ¿verdad? Y hablando de la comunidad de estatus mixto, específicamente la comunidad indocumentada, documentada, ¿verdad? El impacto que esto tendría en las escuelas cuando comencemos a hablar de que estamos invirtiendo en nuestros hijos los primeros 12 años, pero después no hay nada. Entonces, traer recursos a las escuelas, personas como Cristo, como yo, como tantos jóvenes a nivel estatal que saben navegar el sistema cuando somos indocumentados y podemos hacer lo mismo, ayudar a nuestros jóvenes. Porque de ahorita de donde vengo, de esta escuela que en High Point, ese es uno de los temas. Los jóvenes no saben manejar el proceso para ir a la universidad cuando sus papás son indocumentados, cuando ellos son. Pero cuando se abren las puertas para asegurar que la equidad exista a nivel escolar, también se abren las puertas para que la equidad exista también a nivel de educación superior. Entonces, solo quiero terminar motivando a la comunidad que nos está escuchando, a la que va a escuchar, de que no hay cosas en donde no nos podamos involucrar y nuestro granito de arena cuenta demasiado. No hay cosa que nosotros no podamos hacer que digan, eso no sirve. No, todo sirve. Y podemos comenzar a nivel local porque ahora estamos viendo los frutos de lo que es a nivel estatal y en un futuro a nivel federal porque todo el país está sufriendo de esto. Así que los motivos que sigamos juntos.
Muchísimas gracias, María, y gracias por su liderazgo tan fuerte, poderosa, me encanta. And speaking of folks that really encourage us, encourage our community, I'm going to invite Susan Book, who has been just an incredible voice and an advocate for students with disabilities. Susan, what does this mean? What does this ruling mean to you and your community?
So first of all, I've always said that Leandro eats and sleeps in my own house, and hopefully has his homework done by the time this is over. Because I am a mom of a student with disability who I have seen the personal struggles. I don't know how else to say this. I have heard the screams of a child going down a hallway on the way to a place of seclusion. To me, this means the end of those screams. To me, this is hope that I've never had before. I last night got to speak to the Wake County School Board, and I invited them all to be ambassadors of hope. And that's what I'm inviting all of you to be with me, and ambassadors of hope. Because I think when you've had so much harm, whether it be suspensions or not getting your resources or not even being identified for the disability, because of barriers, because of lack of psychologists, because of lack of counselors, and those barriers exist and they're intersectional so much of the time. So to me, Leandro, this ruling is definitely more hope, and I hope that we're all singing it loud tonight and tomorrow. This is an organizing tool also for me, right? This is a tool in my new toolbox, right? A win. We don't get those very often. I get to use a win to explain resources and services going to children. And that's an amazing thing to get to talk about. I get to talk with joy. And when you've been an education advocate, I don't care how long it's been, but if you've been in the state and an education advocate for, 6 weeks, 6 months, 6 years, right? We don't usually get to talk out of this joy. And I think that's infectious. It's so much, I've talked about this many times, but it's so much easier to talk out of joy than fear. So let's embrace that and let it be infectious. So that's what Leandro is for me right now, an end of trauma and fear and a beginning of hope and joy.
Love it. Susan, thank you. So inspiring. Dr. Nash, I am so eager to learn from you. What does this mean for your work as a district leader, for your community?
So for me, Leandro means it's an opportunity to replicate some very successful programs and approaches. We've had some schools in the district that have educated students at high levels, and that's what's exciting for me. The Constitution, the North Carolina Constitution does talk about a sound basic education, but for me, I would like for students to have not only a sound basic education, but an education at high levels. My community is transitioning into one that if students matriculate from our school district and they decide to stay in Winston-Salem, Forsyth County, entry-level positions, which reside in research, technology, and innovation, require a master's level degree. So in my observation of what this means for me is I've just come to understand that a bachelor's degree now is equivalent to a high school diploma. So that means a high school diploma is even more important for our children in Winston-Salem, Forsyth County. So the North Carolina has set forth some recommendations for approaches and that are integrated in terms of ways to move from banking methods of teaching and learning to and industrial approaches to digital learning, preparing students to be successful in the digital age, and creating personalized learning plans for students. And looking at the Leandro funding and the possibilities for that, that's exciting to me because it's just organic to what we could be doing in our community. It is also the funding that is available can create the kind of equity that doesn't necessarily mean we have to have anything extra. It would be just the regular allotments coming from the state. So it's exciting to me because I've seen schools do this. I've seen schools educate poor children, Black children, brown children, and linguistically diverse children at high levels. We had one in Winston-Salem, Forsyth County. I visited one in Charlotte. I visited one in Newport News, Virginia, so it can be done. So Leandro provides those resources to do that. And it's also exciting to me in that if we in North Carolina follow what has already been set forth relative to what North Carolina recommends in terms of whole school, whole child, whole community, the educational, secondary, elementary and secondary education act, these plans have already been put in place for us and set forth in terms of what North Carolina expects of its public schools. So Leandro providing funding for that provides so many opportunities for those programs to be replicated on a larger scale, for me in particular in our what we call Title I schools, where we can provide some opportunities to educate students to be successful. Not only for students to grow, I respect growth and growth is important, but I really do want our students to be proficient. And so I think Leandro is an opportunity for us to provide those kinds of programs for students here in the district, and not only in our district, but in North Carolina as well.
Thank you, Dr. Nash. So we've got folks coming into this conversation from different parts of the state. We're going to share some resources that we have tailored to advocates who are trying to localize Leandro and make this case, this fight really resonate and connect with what our community members are feeling. What are the needs? What are the solutions that they want more investments towards, right? So we're going to drop some of those tools in the chat in just a moment. I would love, Madam President, Tamika, you all have been pushing on equity, on funding, on really defending what's needed for our children for so long. What does this ruling mean to you and to your members?
Well, again, thank you for allowing me to be a part of this conversation this evening. And I'll try to be concise, but also thorough in what I'm going to say. So for more than 20 years, generations of students across the state have all been fighting for the very basic things that they deserve in their public schools, and holding their breath and waiting to see if those people who are deemed the powers that be recognize their basic constitutional rights. And when the ruling came down, we all were able to exhale just a little, right? And so for educators that we represent across the state, we were excited about seeing the things that we have been pushing for, things that we have been advocating for, seeing them written in words that every child, no matter who they are, where they're from, how they identify, what abilities they bring to school, deserve to have a rich educational experience. And it's especially meaningful for teachers who have had to teach through school inequalities, but it's even more significant for students who have had to learn through inequalities. And this ruling provides a glimmer of hope and joy that everyone gets to experience learning without any setbacks, any difficulties, that truly everybody gets to have access to the learning that's going to help them thrive academically, socially, but just as good human beings that we want in our state and in our communities. And so we know that the work of Leandro continues because it is not only the charge of what our Constitution mandates, what we practice as good practitioners, as educators in our school, but we also know that it is a moral obligation to do right by the future citizens of, and our youngest citizens across the state. And so now we really get to champion what a truly robust public education experience from birth all the way up to post-secondary education could look like, not only in how we staff our schools, but the totality of experiences that students get to experience on their learning journey. And I say learning because learning is not limited just to schooling, but their entire learning journey. And so here at NCAE, we continue to be good partners in this work because we are in our communities. We are reflections of our communities. Not only are we educators and we hold that experience, but we are parents and caregivers and business owners and all of those things that we get to see our students' lives outside of the four walls of our school buildings and classrooms. And so, but we press on, right? Because we now wait for the implementation of Leandro so that we can push our students' dreams to continue to come true.
Beautiful. Thank you, Tamika. We so appreciate your leadership. If folks have questions for our panelists, I believe you can go ahead and chat them to the panelists. I hope that that feature is showing up for you. I want to hear from Marcus Bass, who is a founding member of Every Child NC, and he has been leading this fight on so many different fronts. And just like such a strong, voice and consistent source of inspiration for all of our partners. And Marcus is going to talk a little bit, and then I'm going to invite everybody just to tell us what you need. Tell us, how can we show up to support your advocacy, to support children and families in the school communities where you're working. And hopefully we'll have some time to field any other questions that folks have. But Marcus, how are you feeling about all this?
First of all, Sarah, this is a moment of extreme joy for millions across the state. The intentionality just of this call, thinking about the leaders that are here representing some of the original counties, representing some of the original harm, and then even thinking back 30 years ago, I was in first grade. So some of the original students in these counties are now fighting for the win that we saw today. And I don't think we need to let this moment pass. I know we're talking about what's next. I know we have to push the legislature. I know we have to push our county commissioners, but I really want to take time to honor and celebrate the work that has gone in. North Carolina is not defined by political wins on a Tuesday, but we're defined by wins that come on Thursday, on a week prior, before even the vote was cast on election day. We were in a real space to celebrate advocacy and democracy in a real way and balance of power. These are still things that even after the election that I wrestle with, but I am uniquely honored and deeply humbled to be in this fight with everyone. We worked across the state of North Carolina for 3 years as a coalition to make sure that folks were educated around what's happening. All the work that has been put in has not been in vain. And this unearths the real intentional and continued attack that we see on public schools. I want us to think about this as we celebrate. For the past 30 years, Sarah, as Leandro has gone on without resolution, the state has continually and strategically underfunded public schools. So when we look at the drastic impact that this has had, it's inspiring to commemorate today, but also in this moment, we have to recognize the thousands of children that have been lost in this system over the past 30 years, the thousands of families that weren't brought whole, being able to see their loved one's degree match in Hope County, the same level of earning that it did in Wake County. We failed and have failed individuals in North Carolina by at the same time saying that we're in the tops of some of the categories in education across the country. What good is that when in residences across North Carolina, even in some of those same counties where you had the best schools, we had some of the worst conditions for education, the thousands of homes that were not being able to be purchased because individuals couldn't get jobs because of the lack of quality education, and then the millions of dollars in revenue that this state has lost. I think today represents a changing of the tides. And the fact that this was done on a bipartisan level, the fact that you had Republican judges, the fact that on a local level, on a lower court level, the fact that you had this state Supreme Court that really stood up not just for this case, but they set a precedent when they said that, yes, Supreme Courts do have authority over how constitutional mandates are carried out. Education won out for North Carolina in a space in which not just North Carolina, but the nation is watching how the Supreme Court responded. And I think we have to make sure that the nation is watching as we push even harder to make sure our legislature does the right thing, to make sure our comptroller does the right thing, to make sure we're working with our local electeds. And I'm so glad that we have our commissioners here with us, our elected officials here with us, because that's what it's going to take, standing beside Commissioner Sutherland when he goes in and make sure those funds are drawn down. When we're going to go talk to our new legislative leaders that have just been ushered in to remind them of the mandate, I think it's going to take all of us being in community, just like we are in these boxes. A lot of folks are wondering in North Carolina, and I know President Kelly gets this, they're already asking, what do we do? You know, some folks feel hopeless after last Tuesday for whatever reason, but the hope, the bright future that we can point to, the millions of dollars that are going to help marginalized students with different disabilities or different abilities, English language learners, Black and brown students, that when we move those families, when we move those people from positions of desolation to prosperity, imagine how many more votes we're going to have over the next 2 years. So I really want us to hang tight, y'all. I really want us to hold on because we're winning, as they say in Clinton, North Carolina. And we have to make sure that we remind folks that we are winning. In spite all of the loss that's around us, there is hope because this community, these leaders, you yourself in all the ways have held this down in a very, I would say, humble way for North Carolina, in a way that we must make sure that we have to be very loud and boisterous about the good work we did, and then figure out ways to work with our elected leaders to make sure they do the right thing and uphold the Supreme Court ruling. But I'm excited, Sarah. I'm ready to go.
can count on Marcus to just like provide that master class and how to claim this win and really own this message and own our narrative, right? Because our narrative and the way we talk about this, you know, that is building power, which is what we're about here at Every Child in Sea. I know we had a couple questions come in that I'm going to invite Henrietta real quick to address those questions from folks in the room, and then we are going to close, unfortunately, but we want to be respectful of everyone's time. We're just going to close with a quick round of what do you need and how can we show up to support your advocacy. Henrietta, go ahead. You're on mute.
One of the questions I did see was, you know, does it require parity with the public schools or to pay people enough wages as early childhood teachers so that we don't lose them to Target and to Sheets? And yes, I mean, that goal keeps moving though, because as what teachers across the board from early childhood to K-12 need to make a living wage right now with the economy where it is, that we have to keep pushing for the investments that are in the plan, starting with statewide wages for all the salary supplements that early childhood teachers are entitled to continuing to push to have those teachers make not only a living wage, but the wage that it takes to attract and retain high quality, well-educated early childhood teachers and teachers in the K-12 system. And that number keeps going up. So the cost of delay means that the cost of having a well-compensated workforce keeps going up as well. So the plan has provisions for that, but we have to fight for those. And even today, they are raising the rates for NC pre-K slots, but nowhere even close to the true cost of care. So we have to fight for that, because if people want to have childcare so that they can go back to work, there have to be enough teachers to be able to keep the classrooms open. So this is a step and we have to fight for it. And now is the time. So I'm glad to be here with everybody to work towards that.
That's right. Thank you, Henrietta. I'm going to kick it over to Team Hoke. What do you need? What do you want us to know? How can we advocate alongside you?
Hey, Harry, you're muted, Harry. I see your mouth moving, but you're muted.
Okay, I appreciate that. Basically, what we want to do is just continue to stand firm, stand with the team. We're not going to allow the legislatures to go to sleep at the wheel. They've been asleep for 25 years, and we got to just keep pushing them to bring this money home. You know, I say this old jokingly. I tell them, I say, show us the money so we can show it to the kids and to our teachers. So we're not playing until you all legislature bring the money down to locally to our children and our teachers.
That's right.
Absolutely. And in my closing, I'd like to say that, you know, we have a new seating of board members. It is critically important. You ask, how can you help us? You help us by helping us to keep before these board members, Leandro. Leandro has to be ever present wherever we go. I am at all of the commissioners' meetings and some of the conversations that come before the commissioners' meetings. While I don't take any citizens' needs lightly, I do think that our children have a greater need. And for all of you animal lovers, don't get me wrong, but I think our children, we have a greater need for our children to have access and opportunities that we're fighting for, and to help us to help our new board members understand fully and to become fully engaged in this process so that they can then be advocates, and they can be true advocates, because you can't speak about what you don't know and understand. And so what I'm asking is that we continue to raise the bar, we continue to educate our leaders, and with Harry and myself, We're going to do that. We're going to do that. But when you have an opportunity, or we have an opportunity to bring you in and to say, hey, here's another town hall. Want you to give them the meat of what we're dealing with. And yes, we have won. We're not going to take, I agree with you, Marcus, 100%. We have won. And for so long, you know, we're not taking it back. We're not taking it back. We're walking as winners because we are. But yes, we do have, as that old saying go, have miles to go before we sleep. But for today is a win.
That's right. Thank you. And if folks haven't already checked out Resolution, which is a short video featuring Jackie and the fight that they've been leading in Hope County, that's on our YouTube channel. Connect with us after. María, estamos a la orden para ustedes. ¿Qué necesitan?
La comunidad latina, como ustedes deben de saber, necesita mucha información. El plan Leandro no se hablaba en la comunidad latina con los grupos de base y líderes hasta este año. Y en parte se debe al liderazgo que tienen personas que trabajan en la comunidad directamente. Entonces, más información, también información más digestible, porque ustedes saben, nuestras comunidades sí son educadas, ¿verdad? Yo no creo de que la comunidad necesite educación, la comunidad es educada. Pero a veces el lenguaje legal puede ser confuso en inglés y también entonces en español. Entonces, información digerible y que seamos intencionales a la hora de que pensamos en abogacía, en incluir a las comunidades, que no solo nos olvide que hay comunidades como la comunidad latinx, como la comunidad asiática, muchas comunidades que se pueden beneficiar, que a veces se nos olvida, ¿verdad? Involucrar. Pido intencionalidad y transparencia y más colaboración, que nosotros podamos apoyar también e invitarnos a la mesa.
Así es. Muchísimas gracias. And I know we're running up on time, but Susan, what do you need real quick? What do you want us to know?
So I know parents and this last election, what a weighted term. But parents, we can do a lot, but we need to be willing to work with one another. I am looking at this panel because I have worked with many of you before. So I'm inviting all of us to join Every Child, to be connected to one another. So parents are hearing teachers' voices and teachers are hearing parents' voices, and disability, folks are hearing Latin folks, so that we are hearing each other, because we're going to need each other as we go forward. And I also want us to take a moment to take pride in our public schools. I don't have a list of schools that I can send my kid to, but I have a public school. So let's be amazingly prideful about the schools that we're in and how we get to make it better. Let's make sure that narrative is ours, not what somebody else thinks we need, but what do we need to make them better? And what are we doing right that we can tell our legislators about the beauty in our public schools, our students? So wear some spirit wear from your school every once in a while. Let people know that your kid is in public school, and let's not talk about parents' rights anymore, but let's talk about students' rights within those public schools.
My heart is swelling. Thank you, Susan. Yes. Dr. Nash, what do you need? What do you want us to know?
So this question reminds me of Dr. King and what he said. Be true to what you said on paper. From the Constitution through what DPI outlines as programming and expectation and standards for public schools, all of that comes with cost. What I would want people to understand is that affluent families do this organically. And what we're proposing for poor children, Black and brown children, it reminds me of the African proverb, it takes an entire village to raise a child. So those elements have been set forth. in North Carolina in their requirements for public schools. But all of that comes with a cost, but the return on investment is immeasurable. And so that's what I would want this group to communicate to policymakers and decision makers and those who hold the future of North Carolina students in their hands.
Thank you. We're going to hear from Tamika, and then Marcus is going to take us home. It is worth your while. Stick around for a couple more minutes. Tamika.
All right, so I promise I'm not going to say anything that is earth-shattering. What I need, what our fellow educators need, what all of us on this call need is essentially we need you, right? Public schools are a public good, and it is everybody's investment in public schools, which make our communities, which make our lives much richer. So when you become fully in love with the work of Leandro like we are, right? Then you are charged now with going to talk to every elected official that you can find and ask him to do some work to move Leandro to your respective part of the state, because it is the county commissioner's job to make sure that Leandro money gets to the school so that we make sure we have safe and secure buildings. It is your state rep to make sure that Leandro money gets to make sure that it funds resources in the school and funds personnel. And really, even it's your city council members' job to make sure that those people are advocating for Leandro money to come to your community. So we essentially need you to join with us in moving Leandro work, because it is our shared responsibility to do right by our students. Because like I said, they are the future of our state. And if we want to see our future be prosperous, then we make sure that our money matches our priorities.
That's right. Beautiful. Thank you, Tamika. Marcus.
Two things, and I'll make this very quick. One of Martin Luther King's last books and one of his most well-known books was a book entitled Why We Can't Wait. And that is the first thing I'll tell you all. Do not wait. Don't wait for the General Assembly to go back in session. Don't wait for the county commissioners to call a meeting. Don't wait for a special hearing. Go ahead now to your local county commission meeting. Go ahead now, call your legislature and let them know exactly what you want to see happen, because you know we won this money and we know they have to do the right thing. If we wait for them to call us to the table, they will have already eaten and we will have the crumbs. You all know this. So please do not wait for them to put it on the agenda. Tell them that they're going to put this on the agenda now, because we don't want another year to go by without this going into action. And the second thing, which is a follow-up to what Susan said, we won this because they couldn't pick us apart, right? They could not say black or brown or different abled or English language learners or students in rural communities versus students in urban communities. And we know what that code word means. We have to replicate this unity at every single level. When we're stepping in there, we're not talking about just one need for one community, because Leandro mandates that each and every single one of our babies that was invisible are now visible. And we have to bring that unity at a local level. And it is not hard. Your babies are already playing with each other. In kindergarten, elementary school, you go through those hallways, they don't tell a difference between who's who. We have to make sure we take this same nucleus and take that advice, take that lesson that we learned from our children, take this lesson from Leandro and build these coalitions on a grassroots level. And don't wait for them to ask us what we want. Tell them, show them the West Air report, show them the information from Every Child and See. You don't have to be an expert. You just have to point to the information and stand united and don't quit.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. I'm encouraging everybody who's listening in, who's joined us tonight, reach out to these leaders, ask them how can you connect? How can you support them? How can you share your time and contribute towards this incredible advocacy that they're all leading on? To all of our incredible panelists, this is your win. Own it. Thank you. We are here to continue this fight. Every Child in See is not going anywhere. We are here for the long haul. Tell us what you need. We've got resources, materials. We will come to you. That is what this group is designed to do. And we encourage everyone to join us in this fight. Everybody be safe. Have a beautiful night. And thank you so much for leading with Leandro.
Thank
Bye,
you, guys. Peace
Thank
and
you.
blessings.
Good night, everyone.
Good
Thank
night.
you.
Good night.
night.
Amen.